Yeah, so like a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting, I think sounds like it could be quite interesting.
So I've got a cool prompt that that actually goes well with this. So one of my prompts is that it's about a city that's built on the back of an animal, but I was thinking of something more along the lines of, you guys are familiar with Baba Yaga's hut, and so it's some kind of structure, and it's dying, and everyone knows that it's dying. So this is the post-apocalypse part of this, is that like they're going into this building that's built on this animal that's walking around. Like imagine a tree house, right? But now put that in the antlers of a beast, of an old, like an elk that is so large that it has a tree house built in its antlers. And, there's a treasure or something like that in there, but this beast is dying. And it's meeting its end. They're trying to remove this treasure quickly before this animal actually dies and it's lost forever.
That could be very cool. What if, like, if you wanted to go for eldritch horror, what if the creature's not dying, it's just sleeping, and it's not a good creature, it's actually...
Yeah, I was thinking of in the dungeon, you can see all of the rooms, but you don't know what is in each room. So
is that actually works really well with the idea that we're talking about. Believe it or not, I'll tell you how. So we are talking about a post-apocalypse sort of idea. We're dealing with a creature that is much like Baba Yaga's hut, except for this is like a huge reindeer, and in its horns it has a structure that's been built. And maybe this animal is actually walking in water, like it's actually walking in a shallow sea. Like imagine like it's in the Black Sea or something like that. If it sinks, it's done. It's gone forever. It's an island that is filled with junk, like radioactive junk and shit like that. So you could have something like that there is an island of junk, and this is dangerous junk that they've put over there. These are all old experiments, radioactive, maybe even one of these things blew up and made a bunch of these things radioactive, and they dumped it on this on this island. And there's all kinds of animals that have been warped by this magic, by this radioactive magic on this island. And all of the animals, like the crabs, the rats, everything has become extremely twisted by this radiation. And I think that's super cool that a wizard dropped something that on accident, and they're like, we need to go get that back.
I love the idea. Laser rabbits. I really love this idea about magical nuclear dump site. You can have interesting locations. So I remember episodes of Adventure Time when they have climate control is not working properly. So one part of the island are snow, and just next to it it's sunny, and the next part is desert. So all you can have all kinds of different environments that are really in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at so the setting is pirate Tortuga ships treasure. It's inhabited by unholy nobles. The grim supernatural element is the Grim Reaper, and so I'm thinking, what if this is say it's a setting where instead of there being one Grim Reaper that collects all the souls, there's like multiple different supernatural entities that try to collect different souls, and they're sort of in competition with each other. So they're essentially like Grim Reaper pirates. Some of them are more legitimate than others. So perhaps the adventure is the players have to go to one of these sort of one foot in our world, 1 foot in the afterlife sort of Tortuga pirate pirate Grim Reaper settlements to try to steal back the soul of someone they care for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or maybe like in this, like it's sort of like that sort of Hades, if you play the video game Hades, where you can physically escape the underworld. Maybe it's sort of like a semi-physical place, but it's like a great trial to get there. But we're assuming that the trial has probably already taken place or something like that. if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's a thing to get there. So
they have a cool version of that in Magic: The Gathering, where you can escape Hades. It's just that you need to. If you escape Hades, you lose your face. You become the faceless. They have to pay off the ferryman if they escape Hades with their identity. And so there are these people who have returned, but they wear these masks over their faces because they have no face. They're these golden masks, and those are essentially what the undead are in a Magic: The Gathering setting. Sargasso Seas. Like, are you familiar with what a Sargasso Sea is?
No.
is that kind of like the garbage patch?
Yeah, exactly. So a sargasso in the ocean is where natural currents draw debris together, and they make it into an island of debris itself. And
Okay.
usually that happens with seaweed and shit like that, but in our world it happens with trash. And so there are these huge islands of trash that are, gathered together by these currents. And this makes for, when you have things like derelict ships, it allows for it creates its own ecosystem, because all the shit in the sea gets attached onto it, and then as soon as it provides shade, fish come to it, and now birds come to it, so it makes an island in itself. It's just a really interesting temporary ecosystem, and I think that's a perfect setting for this, especially it's got a real apocalypse type feeling to it, because this place is already falling apart.
Could perhaps then one of the ships be something like maybe ship size, but not a ship? So, like, I don't know, the body of a dead giant that's rotting, or something like that, or a titan, or a dragon, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. I imagine like a Thor Ragnarok situation, where boats that sank there and they survived on the island. They're using the dump site to survive. So you have the whole society there, and like the wild shit is going all the time. So even they don't have it under control. They're just trying to.
I think though that like having like, if it is like just like the sort of just like a half a dozen or a dozen massive ships and maybe a couple of giant carcasses or whatever thrown together, I think creates an image of like I think that would also add a lot more hazards to the players, because you're also like dodging, because like if this ship falls apart, you might drown, sort of stuff. If the players just crash there by any means, I think, and they have to escape.
Yeah, there's plenty of reasons that you would end up in a Sargasso Sea, because everything's attracted to it. If you get caught into a tide, it's going to take you to it. And if your ship is caught into it, you're fucked.
You don't even need to be like castaways. Like if it's a magical dump site, someone can accidentally fall into a portal or be pushed into a portal, and now they need to come back home.
That's that's actually a fun thing in my own world. People, I run a Harry Potter game, and so people apparate each other. Like, that's actually something they offensively do, and so you can end up in really weird places. And that's this is like a phantom zone type thing. So let's say these guys are criminals. The players are criminals, and they're sentenced to exile. They teleport them to this Sargasso Sea. There are all kinds of criminals that have been sent here, on the sea. They want to get off too, but no one knows how to do it. Maybe you don't even need to teleport them. Maybe they put them on ships that they purposely break, so they have no rudders, and the tide naturally takes them to the Sargasso Sea, and there's nothing they can do about it. They just sit on these boats and wait for their fate. And maybe the players are like that too, or maybe they're trying to break out a friend who's been put in this fantasy prison. Oh yeah, and the cool part too is like they have taken the animals that live here and they've domesticated them. So these guys have sharks. Like, sharks are their dogs, and and they sick sharks on people.
Could it be also like maybe it's like something like there was this ancient, like maybe you can't sail away from this island, but maybe they say like long ago this kingly ship crashed, and we have reason to believe that it had 2 Pegasuses on board or something like that with a flying chariot. So you actually have to fly away from.
Because there's animals that have naturally gravitated toward the Sargasso, like seagulls. And there is let's say there's a flock of seagulls, and there is one crazy motherfucker who's on this island who tells the players it can be done. We can gather this flock of seagulls. I've made it's like a hot air balloon, but it's attached to birds. And the whole game is like getting hunting down these giant fucking seagulls and taming them and then hooking them up to this weird, it's not hot air balloon, but it's a basket, and flying off of the Sargasso Sea. All the while the other prisoners, this boat can't take many people, it's about weight. And these other prisoners with the packs of sharks, they all want to go too, but you can only take so many.
Yeah, just use a stack block from a rock or something like that.
Yeah, we can combine ideas like we need to rescue someone, but don't know how to escape, and we hear, there are some flying animals in the other part of the island, so they need to survive to that part of the island to get to the animal or whatever the escape is. Portal. Maybe rescue ship comes there, whatever. So they come to the island, they save the person, and then they need to survive to get to the place from which they will be rescued.
Yeah, there's a great idea here. So let's say the guy, he's not crazy. He's a biologist. He's a biologist. He's trained in fucking the study of animals. And a migrating rock, so let's call it a seagull or whatever, actually has landed here. They, just like birds do. Birds migrate, and they land on Sargasso. They do it once a year. And this prisoner, who is a biologist, says there is a way off this island. There is a rock that's going to land here, and he does it every single year. All of the migrating ones do. That's our chance to actually capture one of these things and get off this island. I think that completely works, because so imagine when kings, this often happened in medieval world, but when you wanted to make sure that your subjects behaved, they would have your children grow up in your court. So a king would say, "Hey, I need your eldest child. They're going to grow up with me." And so they make sure that none of their subjects misbehave, because if they do, they've got their children hostage. Always, they actually grow up with the king. You could turn that to the same thing with these crime lords. This crime lord actually has, he's a don, and he has the child of, a capo, a captain, and as punishment, he sends the child to the Sargasso. Just to punish. Yeah, he punishes one of his captains for acting out. And so the party's approached by the captain and said, "Look, this motherfucker sent my eldest daughter to a prison camp of, just a terrible place. Now, this guy he's no good guy, as it is. But the players are like, all right, we'll go get her." Thinking this is that, the players get there, they find the girl, they find the prisoner, and they're like, how the fuck did we get off this place? We're screwed. And they're approached by the druid, who is like, there is a way off this place. And he's like, you just have to be brave enough to do it, And they're like, huh? And he's like, there are nesting rocks that are going to come here, and they're coming soon, and they'll only be here once a year. If we can capture one, then we can ride it and fly out of here. Then the players will realize that this guy's a little bit crazy. He's such a bird nerd. We should call him the bird nerd. That he got sent to prison just to see these birds.
Well, I think the whole criminal city thing is actually is probably among the most interesting. So I guess, what are some things that cities generally need that would be fun locations? So you could have a tavern on a ship. Tavern on a ship is like that's a fun Friday night date, I'll say, as well. Like bar on a ship or something like that is nice. But tavern on a prison tavern on a prison ship could be pretty metal. And I suppose needs to be some places of governance. So wherever you'd meet, like whoever's in charge, who must have something to do with the kid. Or maybe he's just got like a tree house built in the crow's nest of a ship or something like that. Like I doubt it's anything high tech. Everything's just sort of slapped together or something like that.
Yeah, right. No, it's perfect. And he's got binoculars, and he's in heaven. He's just looking at these birds.
I sort of thought it was like several ships, like at least these several large ships that are sort of lashed together. So and like the ships might have different factions and things like that. So the city might be multiple ships slashed together, but there might be other ones that are other ships.
Like a shipyard town, right?
Yeah, shipyard town, like Waterworld, but good.
One of my favorite locations is these guys have built a society here, and they've cleared out like a pool. So they've got all these big ships, right, that are all lashed together. And there's a space in the Sargasso that's open to the sea. It's a pit. And this is where they do they bet on shark fights. So this is really a dog pit. This is quite brutal, except for they're doing it with sharks and things that they have access to. And they bet and watch this fights. And so you could actually meet the bird nerd at that one of these particular this is where the people are hanging out in the ring.
Count to maybe tie that in with the objective. What if it's not a dogfight, it's more like it's maybe a way that they used to race people who have wronged them, people who commit crimes. It's kind of like entertainment and justice at the same time. So it's kind of like whoever's managed to, like, you release two people in a pit, and there's a shark, and one of the people released just happens to be the person you got to save. So you've got to try to break up this game in the middle of it happening, or find a way to surreptitiously help them.
When you get on the bad side of the bad guys, they actually sick this pack of sharks on you. This isn't the last time you'll see them. They're a pack of smart dogs, and they're going to be hunting you from underneath the Sargasso. They're smelling you, hunting you. Like, if you ever have a break in the Sargasso, fucking sharks are snapping at you, trying to pull you under. And that they're underneath you. You can actually feel it every once in a while. Just give it a lot of tension, knowing that you're being hunted.
Well, definitely then we need old bridge, right? In all of the movies there's old bridge, and maybe when you're walking across there's sharks. It's right. And there is a name of the criminal who is chasing you written on the shark, so he's chasing you.
And that's the thing. Is the bird nerd tells you, this is not going to be easy. We have to get to the other side of the Sargasso, meaning we've got to cross the sea. And I'm saying sea with quotes because it's the not stable part of the Sargasso, and they're going to be jumping from island to island of trash. And they know that the sharks that they saw in that scene before at the ring, they're there. They're hunting them down. And what a cool! That's such a cool scene, man. Jumping from trash to trash while sharks underneath you are trying to hunt you. The way I see it right now, I see. There is the Sargasso Sea. It's a prisoner for prisoners who are exiled there. They're sent there by boat. They're retrieving a daughter or son of one of the crime bosses. They meet when they get there. They meet at the city, the city of boats. They see the ring, and they see them executing people. And this is where maybe they find the son or daughter. They also meet the bird nerd, who's there is a way off this, but it's going to be dangerous. And they're not going to let you go there. We're going to have to sneak away from the prisoners. They go into the minefield of junk, the Flotsam and Jetsam field, what do you call it that? And then they get to the rock's nest. They capture a rock. They build the harness. They fly away. They're chased by another rock. The end. That treehouse could be on one of the ships that makes up the ring. So the way that I keep on seeing the ring is it's boats that are strapped together, all these old derelict ships, and they actually make a barrier so that the junk doesn't flow into this middle of the ring. And so this is how the prisoners really live. This is where the sharks are, but this is where they fish. This is where, this is the center of this town. This pool that they've created is an ecosystem that keeps them all alive. This is where the tavern is. This is where, and everything has to do with the sea. They survive 100% from the stuff that they get from the sea. And on one of those ships at the top of a crow's nest, that is the bird nerd's lair. And maybe you even get a chance to watch the execution in the ring from the bird nerd's nest. I don't know, but that way you could see his lair. Yeah, on the other side of the Flotsam and Jetsam, there is a mound of garbage, and that is so you could take your room of requirement idea, which is this is just stacked with garbage. This is the junkyard, and this does have a use. It's not totally natural. This is where all of the prisoners for years they've been gathering things that they could use. They've built their entire society from this pile of stuff that they've gathered. So this is where nets and chests and barrels, anything that's washed up on the Sargasso Sea, they've stacked here. And yeah, they could climb it and it could be falling apart. That's awesome.
The idea,
like some gangsters at the time.
Lumen, when you said that, the idea that came to my mind, maybe there are different levels of an island. Maybe there is lower part of the island that is closer to water, and there is like a cliff, a higher part, and there is a ship who crashed and it's landed on the cliff. Up, so it's standing upside and it's old and rusty and it's falling apart. So you need to climb the ship. I imagine Titanic when it's sinking down, so it almost went upright. So imagine the ship standing like that. And you need to climb it, and it's falling apart, and you need to get to the top of the cliff to get to the next part, to get to the bird.
I love that idea, Mr. Peculiar, because so it's not exactly a cliff, but look at it more like a tower. It's a big ship that is sitting perpendicular to the sea. It has, granted, it's like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but it's a big ship. That's where the rock nests. Maybe it nests at the top of the ass of that ship, and so the players are actually climbing through a ship to get up to the top, like a tower. They're climbing nets and things and sails that have fallen over from gravity, but it's like going up a tower that has no stairs. They've got to figure out how to go. They fall back down towards the water. The sharks will get them. They're being chased by the prisoners who, they want to escape too. They want to capture the rock. And I don't know that I just kind of said that. I don't know how I'd fit that in, but I definitely like the whole being the urgency of this.
Just to add,
race. Maybe it's a race. Everybody knows once a year rock comes to the island. And there is a huge who will be the first person who gets to the rock.
Just to add something, maybe the prisoners had advantage. Like you said, they had sharks before. So what if they had sort of like Waterworld barbarian style? They, instead of using horses for a cart, they have rowboats, and then they sort of attach them to sharks and use them to sort of swim along as well, a lot faster than the adventurers.
Sure, you could do something like that. I love what Mr. Peculiar just said. So it's not now. It's no longer the bird nerd doesn't have special knowledge. The bird nerd is there for his own reasons because he wants to see the birds. But all of the prisoners know that the rocks come once a year, and there has been stories of prisoners escaping this way. It's been done before. And they're just waiting for the rock to come. Now they know that they can only get like 1 to 5 people, basically the size of the player party. They can only get, that size off. They won't get the whole population off, but maybe like they're up to they're celebrating the days before the rock has come. Like when you see the party at the ring, they're actually partying their ass off because they know someone is going to, like the people who won the lottery or something like that, they're going to get off the ship. They know damn well about the rock, and now the party does too, and so they're going to cheat and get in front of the line.
Yeah. Maybe there is a sign, so nobody knows when the rock will come, but there is some kind of sign, and everybody sees it. Like they hear the sound of the bird, and they're like, "Okay, the race is on, right? The bird is here."
I think it could be like, what if it's like a really supernatural sign, like like there's like a really eerie sort of sign that the rock is coming, like the sun moves backwards across the sky or something like that. Maybe that's a little too grand, but the
world blows up.
Yeah, or something like that. Maybe the air smells faintly of lilac, which it never does at sea.
I still think that the migrating thing's fine, and the event that happens is that there's all of these sunfish. They come to the surface because like there are fish that actually they look for shadows. That's kind of the thing that they seek out. And maybe there's like on the surface of the sea, when these sunfish rise, they're looking for the shadow of the rock. That's when they know the rock is in the air. And it's near. And so the party begins when these fish start to appear near the surface. I think treat this also like instead of making it a basket that they're trying to carry to the top of the tower, it's a harness with grappling hooks. And so it's like Dune, how they travel on sandworms. So what you're trying to do is these guys are trying to get to the top of the tower and hook the bird. And when they hook it, they're getting pulled along like on a string, of this old rope. But that's how many people determine who actually can go. Those who can actually hook the bird. And that way it's now like a fishing line, on the rock instead of a balloon. Get rid of the whole balloon idea. Make it like the worm riders. But here's the cool thing about the bird nerd: he doesn't want to leave. He's there. He's there because he purposely went there, and he might tell the party about this, and he might tell them from his crow's nest, lookout. But he informs them he doesn't want to leave. He's there to stay, to watch the birds. He really is a fucking bird nerd.
I mean, I'm a big fan of enemy parties, like enemy, not PCs, but like stylized, people stylized as competing adventurers. So there could even just be, I suppose wanting to escape is a pretty clear motivation.
I was thinking of a bad guy. I call him Sir Bluto, Bluto, and what he is he was once a knight in the real world until he betrayed his king or whatever like that. He was a real bastard, and they sentenced him here, and now he's the leader of this gang, and he's the one who's like, I'm going to get off. Like tomorrow or the next day when the rock comes, I'm going to be the guy who gets out. And it's really him, his gang, and his gang of sharks that you really need to worry about. He is the antagonist. And he's the guy he's going to escape. And the cool thing is because of Peculiar's climax, like you really could have the coolest fight you can imagine, which is you guys are hooked onto a rock, fighting with the pirates and flying in the air.
With the world exploding beneath you through there's a volcano that's about to explode as well. That also does sound cool.
But the rock, as he takes off, the fucking ship falls apart. Those who are hooked on, there are some prisoners, there are some players, they fly off and they have a fucking battle, hurling through the air, attached to these ropes. hooked onto a bird. Man, that is some real good cinematography. Can't believe we got that in 2 hours, or even less.
I'm just thinking, like, what if just to add, if the rock lands all the time and it hasn't destroyed this thing? So what if maybe this doesn't need to be added? Maybe it's too much, but when the players start climbing, one of the few things that can hunt a rock turns up as well. Like, and you hear from the deep, like a big roar as a kraken rises to try and claim this rock and the prisoners at the same time, and that's what ends up destroying the perch.
Oh, you just gave me a great idea, Lucas. How about this one?
Mm-hmm.
So when the rock comes, it's not fish that rise to the surface. It's a whale, a big whale. And the whale and the rock, like, they hunt each other. The whale actually is hunting the rock. It's like this massive killer whale.
Mm.
And that you just allude to that at the beginning. The bird nerd says the whale has risen. He's blown his fluke in the east. That means the rock is in the area. That's the only time that the whale ever surfaces. He stays underwater for a year. He does not breathe for 1 year. He only breathes at this time when the rock comes, and he hunts the rock. And you just kind of mentioned that in the beginning
Oh
of the
my
story.
god, you gave me a great idea. That ties everything together because
Right.
if maybe it's not a whale, maybe it's some kind of a monster, and they're ritually killing people to feed the monsters so it doesn't, destroy the island and the rock. And when the players save the girl, they stop the sacrifice,
Right.
and now everybody knows that the island will be destroyed. So everybody's trying to save their asses because stupid players stop the sacrifice.
Very good, Mr. Peculiar.
Okay. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's very good. And then you can do what Mike has suggested, which is when we hook on to the rock. We hadn't mentioned the whale we mentioned it in the very beginning, but we didn't. That's a surprise, waiting. As soon as you hook onto the rock, the whale busts open. It's like it breaches and annihilates the ship. You see this fucking whale breaks the ship apart as the rock takes off, and it's just so incredibly cinematic. Yeah, I think that essentially let's just write out the acts of this whole thing. So where does every scene happen, and just give it a title. And then we're going to fill in, each of us will take one of these things and fill it in to the best of what we remember, that it was described. So for example, Act 1, the derelict ship. Act 2, the ship ring. Act 3, the Flotsam Jetsam bridge. Act 4, the crooked tower. Act 5, the getaway. I'm just gonna hit enter here, and those are the acts that I see for Sink or Swim. Yep. The moment that we hit the scene Ring of Blood, the game is on, and it's non-stop until the end.
They come there, they talk with the bird there, they find out about sacrifice. They're like, "Oh, have you seen that girl?" They describe it to them. Yeah, but you won't be seeing her for long. And then he explains the situation. And they
Yep.
run there, and they see she's about to get pushed into like the ring of blood, and they save her. And by saving her, they start the whole event.
I think that they're not just sacrificing her. They're probably sacrificing.
Yeah. Like old people, women, children, like all the people, everyone who can't work.
Yeah, that's good. And the party saves the child. The sharks do end up taking some of these sacrifices. And this is also where we meet the sharks, and we realize that the pack of sharks is being controlled. They answer to Sir Bluto. We get a chance to see Sir Bluto in the Ring of Blood and know that he's our antagonist. I love the idea that he's hosting the events at Ring of Blood, and he's calling the sharks, and they're like jumping out of the water at fish that he's feeding them.
Yeah,
It's
in
like
his eyes, he is the good one. He's like, "You fools! You have doomed us all."
Yes, yeah, absolutely. get them is also, like that's where the run, is going to begin.
So I guess there needs to be a way for the players to get out of the Ring of Blood without having to fight their way through Murder Town,
Yep.
Because I'm assuming all the prisoners just be like, well, just throw those pricks in. They ruin the ritual,
I think
I'm imagining like as soon as the ritual doesn't work, something that happens: earthquake, waves, right? People start. There is a fight, but people are also starting to panic.
like maybe.
I would do it like this. So let's say that they throw the girl in the water, and the players jump in the water after to save the girl. When they do save the girl, after they fight off some of these sharks, the Sir Bluto's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we need to sacrifice these people, and all hell is breaking loose. There's panic, but that's when the bird nerd throws ropes down from the crow's nest, because one of his ship is part of the is part of the ring of ships, and they pull themselves out of the water, and now they're on a boat, and that's when the bird nerd says, hey, we got to make for the Flotsam bridge, because we got to make it to the Crooked Tower. Everyone's going to be heading to the Crooked Tower. He gives them their harnesses, their ropes with the hooks, and then they make a run for it with the girl, and maybe they go with the bird nerd, maybe they don't. That's up to how we want to do it. Maybe the bird nerd stays. I don't know. I don't think we actually need the bird nerd, because we already have the girl that we're rescuing. I like what Lucas has said. Essentially, like the crow's nest is hanging over the ring, or actually, like maybe the crow's nest is vertical, and somehow the bird nerd starts rocking the ship. Like, he knows a way to like rock the ship, and so that ship starts to sway, and he purposely puts the crow's nest over the pit, dropping the ropes to the party, but as he rescues the party and they climb up into the crow's nest, he's actually still rocking the ship on purpose, but he's rocking it the other way. What he's intending to do is cut the mast that they're in the crow's nest, and have it drop so that they will get a lead on the people trying to get to the Flotsam Bridge. The Flotsam Bridge is a shortcut, and he knows it, but it's also very, very dangerous. That might be too convoluted, I don't know, but it is a way to get from point A to point B. Oh, a zip line. Interesting. Yeah, so the bird nerd, actually, as soon as you guys get in the crow's nest, the bird nerd shoots a fucking crossbow, like we're talking a huge ballista, and it is a zip line. He's actually shooting it over to where they go, and so he's like, let's ride the rope down, and we'll be able to beat many people. We're gonna go, it'll take us straight into the Flotsam Bridge, but that's a great way to get out of this scene, and it's an exciting way to get out of this scene.
Hey, I think we solved this one. We solved the Ring of Blood.
I do too.
I would suggest that maybe Sir Bluto, just as should be whatever he is, should be so annoyingly suited to this environment. Like maybe maybe a water genasi or some sort of paladin with like some sort of connection to the sea, just frustratingly at home in the situation, but also not wanting to be here, that sort of thing.
Is there a race that's like half shark?
But it could be. Let's just yeah, that's good. Yeah.
That's how he controls it. That's how he has the power in the place. He controls the sharks.
So he's a were shark or something like that. That could be interesting. I never saw the Suicide Squad, but I was thinking like Victor Crumb from in the Tri-Wizard Cup, that kind of thing.
Well, this has been a ton of fun. I actually might want to. I might actually like make some maps of this and might look at running it for my players one day. This sounds really fun. But thank you so much, everyone. And
I can write it. And Mike, if you want to just tell me which scenes you'd like to write, then take them, and I'll write every scene that you don't want to take. I agree. This is an awesome adventure, and the way that it came about, I'm just amazed. Because it started really, we're talking about antlers and a tower. It's the fact that Mr. Peculiar, you brought that one back and made the whole crooked tower thing. It was so awesome. Yeah, it's good. All right, well, we can get out of here. I'll write it up and I'll talk to you guys soon.